Hello, Faith United youth and others. I welcome you to our youth video for this second week in November. Really? That's insane to me. I hope that you guys have not all had just an awful week. I know that this has been a bit of a challenging time for us as individuals and as a country. And we air these on Sunday. It's currently the middle of the week, and so nowadays it's kind of like I have no idea what's going to happen between now and Sunday. And so I just my hope and my prayer is that you're okay, that we are all okay, and that leads us into what we're going to be talking about today. And that is the book of James. If you recall last week, we kind of set up the stage, all right? We talked about who James is, who he's writing to, and kind of some of the major themes of James. And we've talked about how the book of James, it's so rich. Last night we went over it during our Wednesday night youth group, and my goodness, I mean, when we read that entire chapter 1 of James, there is so much in there, and it's incredible the amount of rich content that is just so beneficial, and every single verse there's something that's like, wow, so we are going to focus in this week. We're going to be looking at James 1, and we're going to, instead of like we do on Wednesday nights, which is looking through the entire chapter, we're going to be looking at specifically verses 2 through 5 in James 1. And I think you'll find that there is still so much here. So I'll read that. We're looking once again at James 1, 2 through 5. This is what it says. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Okay, so, the Bible's incredible, because I think sometimes we kind of like listen and we just let it wash over us, and we're kind of like, and then we go back and we're like, wait, what? Consider it pure joy when we are facing trials and hardships of many kinds. Like what? How do we do that? The more we delve into it, and the more we actually kind of make it personal to our own lives and our own selves, and think like, what does this mean for me? How can I, operate in this manner? We find answers. Okay. So, the question, what pure joy, how in the midst of trials? Verse 5. So this is what James says. Okay. He says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. So right here, James is kind of showing us the necessary tools for how to survive in the midst of trials. He's saying, ask God. So pray. Prayer is a tool to getting through trials and hard times and hardships. Asking for wisdom is the second tool. And trusting that God has the wisdom that we need to get through these times. The ability to trust that God knows all, that He's omniscient, that He has everything in His hands. That is how we are able to kind of get through this. When I think of endurance and perseverance, my immediate thought goes to one of my all-time favorite movies, and that is Rocky IV, which if you have not seen Rocky IV, come on, just turn off my video, go watch it. It's so good. And there is specifically this montage where Rocky, who is going up against this Russian that's just, they call him a machine because he is huge and tall, and he literally can do it all, and he is, that's one of the best boxers. And so Rocky, he was getting a little older. He's not as young anymore. He needs to train. And so he goes to Russia, and this is during the Cold War. So there is a lot of nuance. And really at this point in time, this movie was kind of like, a Cold War in and of itself, to see who was going to win, which is there's so much there. Like, did the government put it out? I don't know. But anyways, so Rocky goes to Russia, and during this montage, it's like this amazing song, and Rocky, you see him do like maybe 21 push-ups. He's running for like 2 minutes. He runs up a mountain. And so, you know, what we see, what our minds piece together is that Rocky is training and he's getting better and he's getting faster and he's enduring, and it's this really hard workout, and it's over time, a really long time frame that he's, you know, months that he's training in this cold. And you know, what we see is him doing 21 push-ups, but what is actually happening in the film is that, you know, he's climbing mountains, and he's, you know, putting all of his friends in a big wagon and picking them up, and he's, you know, trying to outrun the Russian spies who are chasing him. You know, when I think of endurance and perseverance, I think of Rocky in this whole montage where it's just like, he kind of is just like, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, you know, don't give up, don't give up, more push-ups, you know, more boxing. But, you know, this is the thing about trials and hardships. They cause us to work. They cause us to work emotionally and mentally. They urge us to push on through these workouts that we don't know if we're going to make it through sometimes. And I'll be honest with you, there is, over time, the more you have to go through this, it almost feels, and I have felt this, that there's almost like a degradation of ourselves. It's like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm not strong enough anymore, you know. But James gives us hope here, okay? So he says that the end result is that we might be mature and complete, not lacking anything. I think we can all think of that one person who, when like crazy things happen, they kind of stand back and they're calm and they just kind of assess the situation, and they're just kind of like, okay, how can we get through this? There have been times that I'm proud to say that I have been that person. There have been other times, like you perhaps, where I have been like the, what do we do? You know, like this is crazy and I'm just gonna cry now type person. And, you know, my emotions get all wonky and we just kind of lose it. You know, I think of my kids when I think of that, or our children who, you know, when they lose a balloon. Oh my goodness. Like, as a parent, my heart breaks when a child's balloon just floats up into the air and they just immediately start crying, you know. And for a child, that is the appropriate response. That is what their maturity level tells them that they can handle, you know. James is talking here about spiritual maturity, okay? And he is saying how to appropriately respond to things as a spiritually mature person. Now, it's very important to note that spiritual maturity is different from developmental maturity, okay? I know 80-year-olds who are less spiritually mature than 15-year-olds, okay? And Paul himself in the Bible talks about how there's some Christians who he says they need milk instead of like meat, meaning like they need to be drinking a bottle instead of moving on to solid foods because of their spiritual maturity. And I think we can probably all, you know, in these times that are really challenging, we can think of an adult who's been throwing fits about things. You know, we can think of people who didn't like the way something worked, and so they just, you know, they were not spiritually mature enough to have the grace, the patience that's needed to kind of get through. What James is talking about is the spiritual maturity that we need to be able to get through these trials. And like I said again, through prayer and trusting in the wisdom of God and asking for that wisdom, that's kind of how we achieve that. The good news is, if you feel like, oh, maybe I am not spiritually mature, maybe I need a bottle, you know, there is good news for all of us, no matter where we're on our path. You know, no matter whether we are super mature, spiritually mature, or whether we feel like maybe we're lacking. We have a Father who has a broad chest, who desires to hold us against him. We have Jesus, who, when he was entering into Jerusalem, he looked over the city and he wept, and he basically said, how I long to draw them into my arms like a mother hen. Like we have God our Father, who is a parent to us, who cares for us, who we can go with our fits to, and they receive them, and they are gracious and merciful, and they give us that grace and mercy that we so desperately need. Let us turn to him, as James said, in prayer, asking for wisdom, so that we can be mature and complete, not lacking anything. I hope that this was encouraging to you today, and I know that reading the book of James is not only encouraging to me, but also challenging, and that's the goal, right? So that we can grow, so that we can become mature, not lacking anything. So thanks again for listening. I hope you guys have an awesome week. Thanks again.